Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Thomas, and I discuss my near-death experience, the things I learned, and the things I think you should know. So today I'm going to be talking about how my near-death experience created a psychic awakening for me. So during my near-death experience, I communicated with Sarah, who's my guardian angel, and as it turns out, the other half of my soul, or twin flame. But we communicated through telepathic means. There were no words said. I just knew what she was saying. It wasn't even like I heard her voice. It was just I knew what she was trying to communicate to me. And afterwards, I realized that I could hear her through the same means. It took me a little while, and I got really frustrated. I was wondering why I wasn't hearing Sarah talking to me anymore. And I just realized at some point that it was telepathic means. And when I say telepathic, I mean it was a combination of hearing her words, but also claircognizant abilities, which means I just knew what she was saying, like in my near-death experience. I just knew what she was communicating to me. So the best way I can describe what happened to me was that my third eye was opened, and through a combination of intuition and psychic hearing, I am able to communicate with the other side. So I channel messages daily from Sarah, sometimes from the archangels. But with archangels, I learned that you have to have a clear purpose for what you're trying to communicate with them. People just think, oh, well, I'll just call in an archangel. Well, you need to have a really good reason to do so. But I also communicate with the ascended masters, such as Jesus and the god Ra. And while reading the Ra material, which I highly recommend, I realized that I could do the same thing as the psychic medium that channeled the book, the Ra material, the Law of One. And I could communicate with Ra. And one morning, just after waking from a deep sleep, I heard very clearly Ra tell me, in kind of like a computerized voice actually, happiness is good. And this was a very timely message from Ra, and that I needed to relearn how to enjoy life and how to be happy after dealing with serious health issues, including leukemia, since I was 18, for almost 18 years now. I hadn't been happy since I was a teenager, and learning to be happy and to enjoy life again has been a real challenge. But hearing that message from Ra sort of woke me up and inspired me to do the necessary inner work to be happy again. So in that way, my psychic abilities and my near-death experience have been a huge blessing. So also during my near-death experience, I saw that we are omnipresent and omnipotent. We are connected to all that is and all that will ever be. And we are individual parts of the collective consciousness. So this means that we're all psychic, as we're all connected to the universe. This explains how two people working independently can invent the same new technology. I mean, look at the invention of the light bulb, or the invention of the radio, or the invention of the telephone. There are many instances throughout history of two people, even in different countries and unaware of each other's work, can invent the same thing. And that is because they're tuning into the collective consciousness. So the next conclusion that I made is that everyone is psychic. We are all connected to the collective consciousness, and psychic abilities are like a muscle that you have to build. That brings me to my next point. My near-death experience was a huge psychic and spiritual awakening. And perhaps because they happened simultaneously, I've made the connection that psychic abilities can be used to enrich your spirituality. At least that's what has happened for me. So every day I wake up, I make some tea with cannabis honey and go about connecting with my spiritual side using my psychic gifts to channel a message from the divine realm. And I never know who the message is going to come from until I start channeling and they make themselves known. And being able to channel messages has helped me along my recovery, both physical and spiritual. And it's helping me to live a happier, more fulfilling life. And so I can really thank my near-death experience for that. Right after my near-death experience, I came across remote viewing, the ability to gain information at a distance that is otherwise unavailable to you. And it's not really a psychic method, but is a technique developed by physicists at the Stanford Research Institute for the Army personnel to spy on targets assigned to them by higher-ups in the government. One notable time remote viewing was employed by the Army was during the Iran hostage crisis. The information they gained was so detailed that later, after the crisis was resolved, the hostages believed that they had to have had a spy inside the building where they were, just because they seemed to know everything that was going on or that went on. And still to this day, no one knows how remote viewing works, but it's like a car. You don't have to understand how the engine works to drive the car. And remote viewing is something that everyone can do. Another conclusion that I've made since my near-death experience, if we are connected to all that is, and we truly are omnipotent and omnipresent, is that God is inside of us all. That might seem like an obvious conclusion to make, but before my near-death experience, I wasn't even sure that God existed. I was very much Thomas the Doubter. I still kind of am. It's like, I have an open mind, but you have to show me. And what that means is that God is accessible to us all, and we just have to learn to listen. For me, it took a lot of meditation and inner work to learn to tune into God, to Jesus and to the angels, and even what I call my star friends, which are extraterrestrials involved in helping humanity raise its consciousness. So as I understand it, everyone has different psychic abilities or gifts. However, I believe all the different types of psychic abilities are accessible to each of us, but there's one or two that are really strong for each of us. For me, I'm claircognizant. I just know things, and my intuition is incredibly strong. In my other videos, I talk about how I woke up from a dead sleep at 3:30 in the morning, and my intuition told me that if I went out back, I would see a UFO. And I had never seen a UFO before. I wasn't even sure if I really believed in them. But sure enough, as soon as I stepped out back, I looked up and there was this huge black craft with clear glass-like sides that reflected the stars, and dim blue lights underneath, that flew over me completely silent as it passed by. And every day my intuition speaks to me, but also I just seem to know things. This brings me to my next point. Kids are extremely psychic, and I believe this is due to the fact that they haven't gone through the education system and haven't had culture shun them for their abilities. It's just passed off as their imaginations being overactive, but imagination and psychic abilities go hand in hand. In fact, you can strengthen your psychic abilities by strengthening your imagination. So maybe it's that kids lose their psychic abilities as they grow and are told not to use their imagination so much. After my near-death experience, I realized that I'd always been psychic, especially as a child. I mean, all people are psychic, but that as I grew, my imagination became less and less of a gift and was more and more shunned by adults. In fact, I took the SATs in the fourth grade and placed in the top 1% of all 11th and 12th graders in California that took the SATs that year. And looking back, I see that it wasn't necessarily because I'm super intelligent, but because I had a psychic knowing of what the correct answers were. So finally, I'd like to talk about the psychic aspects of love. Our hearts create an electromagnetic field. This is proven by science. You can actually measure it. I believe that this is how we're connected to all that is and how we are omnipresent. When you feel the love for someone, the love transcends time and space as well as distance. This explains how a mother will instinctively know when her child is in trouble. This is also how we are connected to God's love, even if we can't always feel it. It's always available to us. It also explains how I am able to feel the love of Sarah, my guardian angel and etheric lover. So if you've ever lost a loved one, this means that wherever they are, you are still connected to them, and in fact, you can psychically channel messages from them. So quantum physics is starting to explain some of this through what Einstein called spooky action at a distance. So in summation, I would like you to know that you too are psychic and that it is just a muscle that you have to build. If you have an imagination, you have psychic abilities. But like your imagination, you probably haven't used it since you were a kid. So thank you for watching, for subscribing, and for all your comments. You are the inspiration that allows me to overcome my health challenges, to share the wisdom that I've gained from my near-death experience. Much love and joy. Namaste.